all ears and eyes, if I must add. We are very excited to have you with us this evening. And indeed, we have a zillion questions for you. We wish for you to take us through your life's journey and unfold the story behind your mesmerizing memoir, Stories I Must Tell, The Emotional Life of an Actor. Welcome, Kabir, to the Catholic Club book event.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here. I'm really happy to be speaking to the Catholic Club because I know you're all book lovers. I know you all care about books. You keep them, you treasure them, you discuss them. So delighted to be here.
I would now like my dear friend Shanti to introduce the author.
Thank you. Kabir Bedi, an international star and a man, like all men, with strengths and frailties.
Muted.
Sorry, guys, that was I was on mute, so I'll start all over again. Yeah. So Kabir Bedi, an international star and a man like all men with strengths and frailties. As Kabir bears his soul, the stories come tumbling out. That first magical encounter with the Beatles as a student in Delhi, the sudden move to Bombay, away from home, friends, and college, his exciting years in advertising, his extremely successful career abroad, and his many painful setbacks. His relationships that changed the course of his life, of the scars they left, and the trauma of 3 divorces, and how he finally found fulfillment, and why his beliefs have changed. These are stories set in Hollywood and Europe, the joys of blazing new trails abroad and the dangers of them. He also tells the fascinating love story of his Indian father, a philosopher in Europe, and his British-born mother, the world's highest-ranked Buddhist nun. And most poignant of all, the battle to save his schizophrenic son. Stories I Must Tell is the unusually candid and compelling memoir of a man who holds nothing back in love or in storytelling. It is the story of a middle-class boy from Delhi whose career now spans the globe. Equally, it is the tale of how he survived the roller coaster journey of the making, unmaking, and remaking of him as a person. So welcome, Kabir.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction and setting the stage for this discussion. Thank you for that.
Now we move on to Naomi.
Good evening, everybody. Let me introduce the book now. As John Dryden says, happy the man and happy he alone, he who can call today his own, he who secure within can say, tomorrow thy worst, for I have lived today. Today's book, Story I Must Tell, is of such a man. The book portrays the eventful journey of a middle-class Delhi boy of Sikh Brit heritage. At every step, he redefined the time voyage of discovery. The book is written with honesty and openness that reaffirms the old saying, truth is stranger than fiction. Over to you, Vinita, to introduce our moderators today.
Thank you, Naomi. Well, we're having 3 moderators today, and I start by introducing Reena. Don't let her demure appearance deceive you. She is a bookworm, well organized with great PR skills, thanks to which we have an event like this today. Reena Pereira is a human resources and communication professional. She has held seminars, leadership positions in multinationals like Wipro and Standard Chartered Bank, and played an active role in diversity and inclusion. She's the former PTA secretary of St. Joseph's Boys High School, Bangalore, and currently contributes to the Women's Commission under the Archdiocese of Bangalore with key issues that uplift the girl child and empower women. Being a member of Catholic Club, Reena has been an active contributor to literature, the iBrowse group, and the recently held Literature Festival. The next person I introduce is Shanti. Shanti, a powerhouse of ideas and creativity, a fabulous orator. Shanti can anchor any event, pique your interest, and get you to the edge of your seat, wanting to hear more. Shanti's career and personal journey have taken her from bustling Mumbai to Kuwait and then to Bangalore. She's currently Director Asia Pacific for Pixelogic Media, a Burbank-based post-production media company dealing with subtitling and dubbing of Hollywood movies and serials. On a personal front, she has a mini legal department at home with husband, son, and daughter as lawyers. Her escape from all the legal talk is to lunch with the fun iBrowse ladies and indulge in all the other activities of the Catholic class. Samira, diligent and resourceful. Get to know her and you wonder if she has more than 24 hours a day. Well, she doesn't. She's fueled by passion and unwaveringly determined to make things possible. Samira Fernandez is the director of EcoSoul Global and is a professional strategy, marketing, and communication professional with over 2 decades of international experience with companies such as Sun Microsystems, Nokia, Jet Airways, Al Ghurair, and St. Francis College. She's a certified change management practitioner UK and also recipient of the Nirbhaya Award. Recently, she was elected in the managing committee of the Bangalore Chamber of Industries and Commerce. She herself is the author of 2 books released by the Deputy Chief Minister earlier this year. Presently, she is the member in charge of the Faith, Ladies and Eyebrows Book Club of Catholic Club. Over to you, Reena.
Thank you, Vinita. I think that was a great set of introduction, and to all those who spoke earlier as well, Shanti, Naomi, everyone. I'm sorry, I'm being muted by the host, so I'd just like to continue. Thank you. So first of all, Kabir Bedi, congratulations on this book being a bestseller and deservingly so. I did bring it on release, and very understandably, the chase that ensued got in touch with Parveen ever since. And I absolutely know what you mean by her thanking her for her support, because I did see it. So please convey that to her as well.
Certainly, certainly. She was an indispensable part in the creation of this book. I would not have been able to do it without her.
Yes, and we did tell you, and you spoke about Catholic Club being a haven for literature lovers. You do join us today in this noted list of authors that have come to Catholic Club, but it's not fully done, Kabir, till you visit our campus and meet our fans meet your fans in person.
I look forward to that greatly. I'm sure something or the other will bring me to Bangalore soon enough, and we'll all meet.
So being a collector of autobiographies, right from Gandhi and even to the current set of autobiographies, yours was certainly a very different one. It was not chronological, it was not linear, not sequential. It took me on a completely emotional roller coaster ride. And
right.
That's what makes it very, very different.
That was, in a sense, the intention, because as you can see from the subtitle of my book, The Emotional Life of an Actor, I decided to look at things through an emotional prism rather than just, I went here, I met this person, I did that, this happened, that followed, and then this drama took place. It wasn't that sort of thing at all. It's seen through the prism of the emotional journey of a person. And that's why I think it becomes so interesting to read, because you really, one of the questions that great filmmakers always ask is, why should the audience be interested in your protagonist? And if you put a star in the role, people are interested because you put the star. But what if in the same role you did not put somebody who was a star?
Yeah.
So if the audience feels for you, then they're with you. And if I tell it in emotional terms, they will feel my feelings and naturally feel for me. So that was, in a sense, the decision I made to tell it in those terms. So you can be part of my journey, be in the scenes that I describe, sense what I went through, feel the joy, the agony, the ecstasy of it all. And that is the purpose and the reason why I wrote the book in this particular way.
So yes, thanks for that start. And let's just start with the way we know you best and then continue. So, so as an actor, the first Indian actor to break across continents, it's not like some YouTube video went viral. It was a lot of effort in those days, and it could not be better put in your book. Kabir starting with India and then becoming a star in Italy and all that frenzy with Sandokan. But coming back to Hollywood and nobody even recognizing you and starting all over again. Tell our audiences about it.
Well, it was an incredibly surreal situation, because here I was already known in India. I was a rising star in India. And then events happened, which I described in my book. I won't get into that here, that took me to Italy and put me in an Italian series that became the most successful series ever, broke every television record, made me an instant star all over Europe. And then, again, for reasons I talk about in my book, I go to Hollywood. And Hollywood doesn't know what happened in Europe. They don't care. It's a very insular town. They don't even care about any other town in America. Maybe New York a little, but they're a completely insular society. So you have to literally start from the ground up in Hollywood, going to auditions, competing against other actors, and in a situation where Hollywood wasn't writing roles for South Asian actors. That was the harder part. So I had to diversify. I had to say, okay, think of me. I told my agent, I will do any role that plays the foreigner, because Americans to Hollywood in those days, every foreigner was a foreigner. Therefore, I said, okay. So I became Prince Omar, Moroccan Prince, the Bold and Beautiful. I became a foreign tribesman with Michael Caine in Ashanti. It was only in the Bond film that I actually was cast correctly as a Punjabi, as an Indian. And being the first Indian in a Bond film was also a special thrill. But you know, it wasn't easy breaking through in Hollywood because they didn't care what happened abroad. I talked about it. I got PR agents, etc. Didn't even get me a mention, an odd mention in the press, some Bachelor of the Month in Cosmo magazine, a few other little things. Nobody cared. So it was a huge battle in Hollywood, but it also gave me a lot of good things in return.
Experiences, yeah. So let's, you know, the best part of your book, and nobody would get that without buying your book, is your experience as a little boy, told through the eyes of your parents in chapter 4, which is Revolution to Religion. I could read it again and again. I've narrated it to my kids, bits and pieces. But your parents fought the struggle for independence, even your mother being a Britisher, one of the first marriages, the way you've documented the proposal, the use of letters. And what is so special, Kabir, is that you have documented your struggle and their struggle through your eyes. And after you, I don't think we will ever have another person. We are born in free India, and I don't think we'll ever have that experience again. So take us through it, in short.
I was very blessed to have such remarkable parents, and they would be remarkable people even if they were not my parents, because they just were such idealists who met and married in Oxford, came back to India, didn't take the best jobs, chose to fight for India's freedom. And how my mother becomes a Gandhian Satyagrahi, my father a fiery communist. And the things they sacrificed. They even lost a child. My
elder brother,
who was right elder to me, died in a diarrhea epidemic, and they always blamed themselves for not being able to give enough time to him, which probably was unfair because a lot of children died in that epidemic. But they lost a child. They lived in huts, literally huts, kacha huts.
The name was the hut. The name of the house.
Called the huts, and these huts were a symbol of their lack of money, but also solidarity with India's poor. And it was the kind of adda where all these leftists and communists would gather and be watched by the police and harassed by the police. And a lot of these people became very famous politicians later. I mean, Gyani Zail Singh became president, Indur Kumar Gujral became Prime Minister of India, Sheikh Abdullah became the ruler of Kashmir, Veer Chalandri became the poet laureate of Pakistan. So a lot of people gathered in those things and shared that struggle. And I think having I wasn't there for a lot of it, but certainly it was all part of family folklore, how my mother led that incredible demonstration of Satyagraha demonstration in our hometown, Dera Baba Nanak, how what it took for her to adjust to, in the beginning, living in a joint family in India, and then bringing up a family with very little means. So I was able to narrate that because also I had the advantage of 3 books written on my mother, which filled in a few details that I didn't know, as well as a lot of detail on the years in Kashmir when my mother was helping the Kashmir refugees before she started helping the Tibetan refugees.
Tibetan, yeah.
So all those things, I benefited from the fact of other books being there. But so much was there in our family records anyway. I was the source of most of the material that.
But it takes something to put it all together, and not just to put it all together. Saw through the book that you were a special, you were a parent. You never left the parenting part of you with your children, or even your grandchildren with your shoots or anything else. So I read through the entire parenting bit through it. But what really struck and what was sad was the Saving My Son chapter.
Yeah.
A son who's a geek who possibly thought of even artificial intelligence at that point of time, being diagnosed with schizophrenia, and that was not even something to reckon with in those times. How is it, Kabir, as a caregiver, and how different is it now?
Can I ask people to switch off their microphones because there's a sort of feedback coming? I mean, other than Reena, people should be switching off their microphones because a lot of feedback is coming. Thank you. So it was unbelievably tragic for any father to be faced with a situation like that. And for me to have a son who I absolutely adored and was brilliant, qualified to join Carnegie Mellon, which is the mecca of infotech, on the edge of the information age, and graduated from there, and then be struck down by this. It was a terrible thing because, mental illness has lots of things attached to it. Somebody's just written a very beautiful book published by Westland on the problems of people committing suicide, the shame, the stigma, the secrecy, etc. And my struggle in this story was the struggle of how a father is trying to prevent his son from committing suicide. And that is one of the hardest journeys because the son that you know and love has changed in some fundamental way. And yet you still love him because he's your son, because he still feels, he still thinks, but he has these times of complete irrationality. And I want to say one thing. Today, the treatments and management of schizophrenia is much better. So I don't want people to lose hope by reading my story of the battles that I had to save my son. It's much better today. But in those days, it was a very difficult thing for me to go through. It was even more difficult for me to go back into that time and relive that whole experience and write about it literally scene by scene, in terms of every important scene by important scene, so that people who are reading the book can share that experience of what it takes for a parent to try to prevent his son from committing suicide and the aftermath of it.
And I liked how you summed it up with a beautiful quote that I would like the people who tuned in to hear. The dead will never forgive those who forget to live. Yeah. And let's appreciate the gift of being alive. So that summed it up very beautifully. And possibly before I pass it on to the next moderator, my final question to you would be the final one, from ruin to resurrection. How human, how frail, and I think we all go through this, from a lot to nothing, and that's the pleasures that stardom brings. So could you take us through that part? Really came through the financial bankruptcy, ended up with the knighting and the cavalier. That was a great resurrection.
See, my story is about being human, about the wonder, the joy, the ecstasy, the heartbreak, the tragedies, all the things that happens and makes us human. If it was just a catalogue of achievements that I did this and I won this award and I went to this famous person, did this fabulous film, your eyes glaze over after a time. I'm a storyteller. I like to tell stories. Every chapter of mine is told as a story. And in fact, you can read my book in any order except for the last chapter. But since you're talking about the last chapter, it was a chapter where, after the incredible success I had, and the incredible series I did in America, there came a time when certain financial investments I made went terribly wrong, and I actually didn't fail. I filed for bankruptcy. And what it feels like for a celebrity to file for bankruptcy is probably worse than many people filing for bankruptcy, because people expect a certain lifestyle of you. There are people dependent on you. There are alimony to be paid. There are debts to be paid. There are all kinds of things. So it's very, very painful. But how do you rise from that? How do you rise? What resources do you go back into yourself and around you to say, I will overcome this? The boy that left Delhi with 700 rupees in his pocket to take on the world is not dead. He is alive, and he's going to fight back with everything he's got in him. And I fought back, brick by cinematic brick. I fought back and rebuilt my career in India and in Italy, and to the extent that I was knighted by the Italian Republic. So it's a real roller coaster of starting from very humble beginnings, achieving a lot even in India, achieving spectacular things in Italy, the hassles of Hollywood, the huge highs of my achievements in Hollywood, plus then the bankruptcy. So it's a story full of drama. And the beauty of my story is not just the highs and lows, the roller coaster of it. It is the emotional journey that I take you through. What happens to people in such situations, the decisions they have to make, the dilemmas they face. And I think that's what makes it interesting, and what traumatizes you within, and what liberates you within. All that is part of my story. And because I've lived a hell of a life.
So thanks, Kabir. So we start with that, and we started there on the serious part, but I've left the best for the rest of it. So we engage the audience and we get it going. So I'd call on my next moderator, Shanti. But before that, I must say that there are interviews abound and plenty on the internet, but nothing is substitute for this book. The style of writing, the alliterations, metaphors, illustrations, and all of that, it's only complete when this is bought. And Kabir, it's only complete when you come into Catholic Club once again. And on that note, over to you, Shanti.
Thank you so much for that, Reena. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reena. Kabir, if there is a word unputdownable, it could be for this book.
Thank you.
So it's really wonderful.
That was my intention, because, I have a very short fuse when I read books. If after the first 2 chapters I'm bored, I just read after that and put them aside. So, in fact, I made a number of attempts over the last 10 years to write my autobiography. And after 40, 50 pages, I said, I'm bored. I wouldn't carry on with this. I put it aside. So it's only when I found a way of telling it in a way that I believed was unputdownable, that just kept you riveted and compelled to it, that I actually sat down and wrote it.
And I think that's why the ad man in you.
The ad man, the theater man, the drama man, the man with short patience, the man that wants to be, it's my responsibility to start reading a book. It's the job of the author to keep me compelled and captured by the book. I'm not obliged to be reading every single page if it's not grabbing me, if it's not interesting me, if it's not having a thrilling conversation with the mind, or reading things that are of extraordinary importance, or things that touch me or move me. If I'm not grabbed, you lose me. And so, as I said, it's your responsibility to start reading my book. It's my responsibility to keep you there.
Yeah, I hope there's another book, but let's continue with the interview. So July 7th, 1966, you were a young 20-year-old working for All India Radio when the Beatles swept into town. It's a fascinating story, and I'm not going to go into it because people should buy the book and read about it. But I want to know, would you say that stodgy, stuffy All India Radio played a major part in launching brand Kabir Bedi?
I think so. I think so. Because firstly, I was working with them because I had to work my way through college. I was in St. Stephen's at the time. Because I worked for All India Radio, I managed to get their badge and their tape recorder and actually find a way, which is very interestingly explained, of getting through to their manager and pressurizing him into giving me this interview, the only interview he gave in the whole of Delhi while the press corps was milling around, and how I got into that room. Now, how I got the interview and how I got into that room and what happened in that wonderful interview, I'll leave for people to read. But what I will talk about is that once I got the interview and I gave it to All India Radio, you know, it was the government department, the backroom boys didn't know what they got. They put it on without any fanfare or announcement. It broke my heart. A few weeks later, I went to get the tapes, a copy of the tape of this interview, and they told me they couldn't find it, investigated more. They'd erased it. Why? And I don't blame them. They didn't have money for tapes. They had to keep reusing tapes. They didn't realize the value of this tape. But that made me stop and think. You know, I've said since then, all through my life, crises are points of power. Because it may not feel like it at the time. You may feel down in the dumps, but if something makes you stop and depresses the hell out of you and you feel you come to the end of a road, it's time to rethink your life and look at the options that come out. Because of that, it forced me to rethink, and it eventually, through an interesting process, set me on the road to, or on the train to Bombay with 700 rupees in my pocket. And yes, in that sense, they were responsible for launching brand Kabir Bedi.
Okay. So, Kabir, it was the late 1960s. Change was sweeping all over the world. You know, psychedelic clothes and mini skirts, protests against the Vietnam War. I'm sure, you know, there was those winds of change were also sweeping into Mumbai. So could you give us a sense of the late 1960s, early 70s in Mumbai, you know, and how, from your point of view, because I know there were many firsts for you during that period.
No, the thing is, the 60s were probably the most exciting decade of the last century to be alive. Because it was a time when the two world wars had finished. There was a kind of, till the 1950s, a very macho, militaristic kind of view of the world. Women's rights were also a big issue. Equal employment opportunities, big issue. It was just an old world matriarchal mindset. Come the 60s, suddenly you have the hippie culture. Suddenly you have a whole social, cultural, and sexual revolution happening, because the pill is invented, which gave people freedom. All kinds of brilliant new works of theater, like Hair, etc., start filling the air with these magical sounds. It's the age of the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, Simon and Garfunkel, the Pink Floyd, all these Matt Joan Baez, all these wonderful singers that are giving a whole new breath of fresh air in a very staid kind of scene. Completely different to the great classics like Bing Crosby and Frank Sinatra and even Elvis. This was a whole different style of music. Fashion was changing. Psychedelic clothes were in. And the mood was change society. And this change affected us even in Bombay. We wanted to be the forerunners of that change in Bombay. And we were the original bohemians of Bollywood. And the Juhu gang that we were part of, which we called ourselves, was quite famous for its freewheeling attitude and freewheeling lifestyle. That's all part of my life, part of my journey.
Yes. And I noticed you called it Bombay and not Mumbai. So you belong to the old school.
Well, that's the city that I came to. It's
Exactly.
called Mumbai today, with due respect, of course. But the city I came to was Bombay.
Bombay.
And I do love the word Bombay.
So Kabir, you have lived a fearless life, you know, all guns blazing, and you have taken calculated risks. In 1974, the Italians swept into Bombay, and they were searching for someone tall, dark, and handsome. And you took a risk, going forward, I think, with your own money, going for the interview. So, and
Yes.
that launched your international career, playing the iconic Sandakan. So, is there any advice to all the people here, getting out of those mental boxes and taking risks?
Let me just say one thing. Fortune favors the brave. You can win a battle, but you got to be in it to win it. So, when I left Delhi, I was leaving the certainty of at least some kind of guaranteed income with All India Radio and television and other income that I was getting on the side by little writing and tourist guiding. But I took the chance that this world is not for me. It has to be something else. So I took the chance and I went. Then fortune favored me. I managed to get a great introduction, get into advertising, had a wonderful career in advertising. For 5 years, I was the film chief of Lintas and of Ogilvy and Mather, two big multinationals. Then again, I took a risk. Leaving the security of this wonderful advertising job that I was doing so well at, I joined the film industry. All my contemporaries in advertising, from Alec Padamsee to Alec Padamsee and just know my bosses, they all rose to the heads of agencies at Ogilvy. Ranjan Kapoor, who was my colleague, became the head of the agency. Lots of great. Frank Samoy's opened his own agency. I left that security and took the risk of joining Bollywood because somewhere it was taking me in the direction that I wanted. And it came through theater, etc., which is also part of some very interesting happenings that happened along the way. But coming to the Italians, I'd come to a point in Bollywood where I realized that I faced a dilemma. That if I wanted to be a hero, a star in Bollywood, I would have to do song and dance numbers. And I didn't like doing song and dance numbers. I fancied myself as a more serious actor. So I knew that if I wanted a serious career as an actor, I would have to look abroad. So when the Italians came into town and offered to audition me at my own cost, fly to Rome, again, I took the risk. I said, take it. It could open other doors. And I took that risk and I paid for myself. I didn't stand on, initially, of course, I mean, I was established actor, how dare they? I didn't go with that. Keep your eye on the ball, recognize opportunity, go where the tide takes you. And that's where I went. And that led to unbelievable stardom. The kind of stardom that, perhaps I've seen it in India. The closest thing would be the Rajesh Khanna phenomenon when it happened. I don't know who's old enough to remember that, but it was like the Beatles. In Italy, whenever I went out, the streets were jammed with fans. Whenever my program was showing, the streets were empty.
Wow.
Every television station, newspaper, magazine, radio station. And I'd gone there with Parveen, and that was part of the drama of that story. It was an extraordinary experience to be going through. And it all came because I took the risks. As I said, fortune favors the brave. So if you don't take the risk, you won't win the battle because you're not in it.
So that's a good lesson for our viewers.
Sure.
They say the way to a man's heart is through his stomach, but your first love, it was through your bladder. Okay. So, but I won't go into that. Let our readers read the book and find out.
I don't mind sharing that. I met my first wife because I was dying to pee and I entered an office to get the key of the loo and she was sitting there with this executive and that's how I met her. That's not something I want to conceal. That's a fun factoid.
Yeah, okay. And I hear that you make a great breakfast.
I do.
You love your fried eggs. You love your buttered toast with marmalade.
I do.
If you have 2 cups of tea, who would you want to share it with? Any person, past or present.
Well, I'd like to share it with the woman I love. In this case, my wife.
Very good.
But who would I like to share it with? If it wasn't any person in a historical sense, well, presently I'd love to have a cup of tea with Barack Obama because I greatly admire what he did coming up from the South, the wrong side of Chicago and becoming president of the United States as a black candidate was an extraordinary achievement for our times. And I really admire Barack Obama. So if I could share a cup of tea with anyone today, I'd say Barack Obama.
Wow. Yeah, good choice. So in 1977, you moved to Hollywood. You became an international star. You starred in many wonderful movies. Can you tell us any role which was close to your heart? Just one, and then we will move on.
Well, I mean, I think the role of Sandokan, which is what made me a star in Europe, has to be closest to my heart because it affected so many people. Overnight, I was a European star, and this is like a foreign actor coming to India, doing a television series that becomes the rage, and doesn't know who Salman Khan is, who Amir Khan is, who Hrithik Roshan is, who Akshay Kumar is. I didn't know the industry. I didn't know the who's who of Italy, and I'm a star in the country. It was surreal. That role has to be the closest to my heart because it changed my life in the most remarkable way. The other role I certainly remember with great affection is the role of Shah Jahan, which I played both on the screen and on the stage. On the screen in India in Akbar Khan's film, and on the stage in Canada in a play written by Canada's award-winning playwright John Murrell for the Luminato Theatre Festival in Toronto. Two roles very close to my heart, but a lot of other fun roles along the way.
So lastly, I want to know the name of your grandson, Omar. Has it anything got to do with the legendary Omar Sharif or Prince Omar of Morocco of Bold and Beautiful fame? Which one?
I wish I could say that. I wish I could say that. It's possible that Pooja had that in mind as well. But I think Omar is a name she was very fond of for a long time. So she gave him that name because she liked the name. Not because I played Prince Omar or because I've done 3 films with Omar Sharif. Although, who knows, that could have been a factor.
It could have been, okay. I mean, you've spent a good amount of time in Italy. Do you have a nice sentence for our viewers in Italian?
Of course. Italia è un paese molto bella. Deve andare e vedere la bellezza d'Italia.
Wow, it sounds very good.
That means Italy is a beautiful country. You must go and see the beauty of Italy.
Wow. Okay. On that beautiful note, Kabir, I hand you over to Samira, who will take this forward. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you.
Kabir, it's
my pleasure. Thank you.
Back to me now. And before we start, we're absolutely delighted to have you with us at Catholic Club. You know, I've read the book online, and I should say it's really been amazing because you have really expressed, you know, almost everything about your life to some extent. But my question to you is, you know, what is the larger story of your life, Kabir? And do you really feel that you have done justice in your book?
That's a very good question. You know, the difference between fiction and non-fiction is that in fiction, you don't know enough. You have to create backgrounds of people. You have to create their families, where they came from. You have to create it all.
Yeah.
In non-fiction, you know too much. I could write a 1,000-page book on my life, and it still wouldn't cover my life. So, but if I did that, who would read it? Nobody reads 1,000-page books today, except maybe some very dedicated members of the Catholic Club of Bangalore, who are true book lovers.
Yeah.
In general, people's attention spans have contracted. And I was determined that my book should not exceed 300 pages. As it turned out, it was about 320 pages. And that's a nice, comfortable size reading type font. And I was very keen on that. I fought for that too. Because I hate squinting. I like a comfortable read. So, and the way I've structured it is through a series of stories to keep the drama alive in each chapter. Therefore, there are many stories, kind of side stories, that I have left out because it took away from the thrust of what I was saying, the main story. The truth of my life, the themes of my life are all there. Many other happenings that were not central to my life, many other people that were not central to, again, the main journey of my life, many other happenings that didn't necessarily strengthen the narrative, I had to leave out. So it's not a complete telling of my life, but it is telling the truth of my story. And that's what I aimed for. And I wanted to do it in a way whereby people had it in a readable size, in a readable font, and told in a way that was highly entertaining and evocative.
Beautiful. And Kabir, it always amazes me because you're a mega star. People know you not just in India, but around the world. And I happen to see a few videos of yours. And don't get me wrong, but I've seen women actually screaming and saying, "Will you marry me?" And, so you are such a sensation, Kabir. But I just want to also understand from you, what are some of the pressures of stardom that maybe we as lay people are not aware of?
Couple of pressures. Firstly, you are continuously under the media gaze and the gaze of people. You do lose a certain amount of privacy. You can't just walk out and stroll on the beach and enjoy the sunset. Even these days, people coming and asking for selfies and all that. So you lose some of that. But what happens with stardom is that suddenly everybody's interested in you. So the demands on your time become extremely fierce from every angle. If you're a big star, forget about being a big star, if you're a star, liked and known, you could be a middle-range star. Every television station, every radio station, every magazine, everybody's wanting content. Today, the digital world, there's tons of stuff on the digital world that they have to fill channels full. They all want content. And who are the easiest people to get for content? Stars, because everybody knows them, people are interested in their lives. And the pressure of that becomes enormous. And if you have an international career like I do, then that demand comes from various countries. I'm not a superstar in India. I'm known, I'm respected, I've had a body of work, and still I get a lot of pressure in terms of demands for my time in India. Same thing in Italy, less so in America now, but then there's all the expatriate groups that want you, then there's all the functions that want you, then there's all the voiceover thing people that want you, then there's commercial endorsements that want you. So you lose a lot of free time.
Yeah.
But on the balance, the benefits of stardom are so great, and that's what you work for, that you can't complain about those things. They just come with the territory, and you accept it, and you say, yes, there are downsides, but the upside is so much more that I thank and celebrate the downside for putting me in this position.
Well explained, and thank you for giving us, an insight into what actually goes on in your world. Because, I think we as readers and viewers always look at the glamorous side of life. So thank you for sharing those insights and giving us reality. Before moving on to a fireside chat or, the fireside rapid fire round, one last question. That man behind you, the photo, I guess that's you at the end of the day, looks really handsome. When was it taken, Kabir? The cover of your book. When was it taken? How old were you then? And can you just, express?
I was just, I was 31 when it was taken. And I I'd just finished Sandokan, and I'd moved to London. I was living in this beautiful home in London. And there was a great photographer called Terry O'Neill, who was the Annie Leibovitz of his age. Like today, Annie Leibovitz photographs all the big stars, all the big names of Vanity Fair and everybody else. That was Terry O'Neill in those days. And I got him to photograph me. And he took this picture. And it's really been very special to me ever since.
It is.
And I've always kept it in my records. And when it was time to do the book, my wife said, I was thinking of a more contemporary picture, you know. She said, no, that's the best picture ever taken of you. Put it on the cover. So I have to thank her for suggesting it. And I have to thank my editor and publisher, Karthika, for agreeing to put it on the cover. So that's a very special picture. And it's a very special time in my life, just after the success of Sandokan, when I was, you know, I had money, I had fame, I had choices, and just before I left for Hollywood. So a very special moment in my life.
That's an amazing photo, I must add. So excellent
Thank
choice.
you.
It really is very attractive, and it gets us to grab our copy.
I hope so.
It will. We're just quickly moving on to the fireside. It's a rapid fire round. So these are like
wait a minute.
short...
Hold on 1 second. There's a big difference between fireside chat, which means sitting back and relaxing and having a fireside chat, and rapid fire, which means you got to be on your toes, quick and clever.
That's the catch. Okay. So when you're with us at Catholic Club, we're not going to let you go so easily.
All right, go for it.
So Kabir, before we start, tell us what has been your most enjoyable movie till date?
It has to be Sandokan. It has to be Sandokan because it did so much for me and I enjoyed doing it so much. I was so well prepared for it physically. I trained for it. I was almost in a meditative state when I did that. And I mean that even in my action scenes, it was like a meditation for me. I was doing something that was almost in a trance. And that has to be a very profound experience for any actor. And I think the role that I played of Shah Jahan on stage was also magical because it was done with this wonderful production by Sampradaya in Toronto, and all done with sets changing with lasers and everything else. I was on stage almost continuously for 90 minutes with Lisa Ray, who played my daughter. And everything around me changed. Dancers came and went. Historical narratives took place. Soliloquies took place. Drama took place. Non-stop for 90 minutes. Has to be a real high for an actor.
I can only imagine. Kabir, I hate to ask you this. Tell us your embarrassing moment, just very quickly.
You know, embarrassing moments happen like you're supposed to take a club and break down a door, and then the club breaks instead of the door. You know, those kinds of things. But let me tell you my most frightening moment.
Yeah.
I was shooting a film called The Black Pirate in the Caribbean. And this was a European pirate that I was playing. And the shot called for me to jump off the side of the ship, carrying the leading lady in my arms. And they said, right, you jump in, we'll pull you up. So I jumped in this black pirate uniform with boots coming up to my thighs, off the ship, into the sea with the heroine. We went under the water. She started rising. I kept sinking. And I'm wondering what's happening. And my boots are filling with water.
Oh my.
And there's no way you can take your boots off underwater.
Yeah.
And they're long boots, right? How are you going to take them off underwater with no air in your lungs? So I knew if I had to live, my arms were like, I had to work my arms like windmills. And I had very strong arms. Like windmills to just break surface somehow, come to the surface, and then it's through with the rope. And then they tell me, the cameraman didn't quite capture the shot. Would you mind doing it again once more?
No. Oh my God.
So I said, okay, here's the deal. I'll do the shot, but I won't wear the boots because I will not rise to the top if I wear the boots again. So that's what I did. They shot the second time without showing my boots. And I did the shot again. So that was my most frightening moment.
That's a nice one. Okay, since we are on short of time, I'm just going to ask you, Tell me, what has been the most romantic place that you have visited till date? What was that moment like?
I think Rome has to be the most romantic city because the historical center of Rome is so beautiful. And I was a student of history at St. Stephen's College, so I knew the history of so many of these places, and I learned the history of so many other places in Rome. Everything from the majestic Colosseum to the Pantheon to the to the wonderful forts they have in Italy, to the wonderful architecture along the rivers, to the beautiful little churches and the cathedrals. It's a magical and beautiful city. That's where I proposed to my wife, Parveen Dosanjh, kneeling on the steps of the Spanish steps,
Wow.
the Spanish steps of Rome. And she accepted, but she didn't say when. And it took me 10 years to get her to marry me, but that's another story. Rome has to be the most romantic city in the world.
Yeah, I have fond memories of the Spanish steps too. I think they were featured in The Sound of Music. So I think that's a beautiful taste that you have, I must add.
Thank you.
Great, great. And, you are an eternal optimist.
I am.
What is the one thing that keeps you driven?
One thing that?
Keeps you driven, yeah.
Firstly, I hate negativity. I don't like negative thoughts getting me down. I don't like negative people getting me down. For me, it's very important to have a positive frame of mind, because from positivity comes creativity. Creativity also comes from grief, from pain, from experience, but not from negativity. So positivity is what renews me whenever the chips are down. Positivity is what drives me when things are going well. Positivity is like petrol for me. It gives me the energy to do whatever I want to do.
Yeah.
And negativity is the reverse. So I try and avoid negative situations and negative people. But positivity is most important. Even my book, written at this age, which is only 50 years old, it says,
yeah,
the best is yet to come, for I'm an eternal optimist.
And on that
I still
note,
believe the best is yet to come.
Yes. And on that note, I'm very keen to ask you, what is the legacy that you would like to leave behind? What would you like to be remembered for?
I would like to be remembered for the fact that I touched so many people's lives by the roles that I did. In some way, those roles affected them. Even today, I meet Italians that come to India and say, we developed an interest in the Orient because we saw US Sandokan and we were fascinated by India and the whole Orient. Till today, I meet people that give me all kinds of wonderful stories of how I affected their lives. And touching people and affecting their lives is how I'd like to be remembered, as somebody who touched people's hearts.
Beautiful, beautiful. And on that note, Kabir, I'm not going to let you go so easily. I would like to request you to do something for us. I hope you're open to that.
Tell me.
Okay, so you've been featured and acted in so many movies your whole life. Would you please reenact a small scene for us, or a short dialogue, whatever is comfortable?
I would love to do that for you. I'd love to do that for you. But truthfully, I tell you,
yeah,
the minute I finish my role, I forget my lines. I don't know what it is. I just don't retain the lines. But if I remembered my lines, the scene I would have done for you was where Shah Jahan is standing on the stage and he talks to his daughter, Jahanara, who's imprisoned by him. Both are imprisoned by Aurangzeb, who usurped him and overthrew him. And when he's put in the Red Fort where he can see the Taj Mahal, but is not allowed to go there. And where he describes to his daughter, Jahanara, what his vision of the Taj was, of how the gold would be in the seams and how the minarets would rise and all the stones that had come from Bukhara and from China and jade from the South. It's such a moving and lyrical account of Shah Jahan imagining the Taj Mahal that he was going to build and finally built. So if I had the memory, that's what I would have recited for you.
Thank you for that. I think that's so beautiful. And before we end, you're a heartthrob to women all across the world. What are your sweet words that you would like to share with the women members of Catholic Club and their guests?
Oh boy. Look, I never look at women as objects. I never do. And when I'm talking to such a special group of women, highly qualified, highly intelligent, highly literate, I just want to tell them that I regard most women like them with the greatest respect, because I know they're intelligent, they're caring, they're sensitive, they're bright, they have thinking minds, and those are the kind of women that I respect the most. So I respect you women the most.
Well said, Kabir. And I think what you're doing is really empowering women to be strong and stay strong. So thank you for those words of enlightenment and also encouragement, to the members of Catholic Club, our guests, and all viewers across the world who are watching our show today, which is being live streamed. On that note, I would like to say thank you so much. And we would now like to move this discussion forward to everyone out here. If you would like to ask any questions, we can take a maximum of 3 questions. So please unmute yourselves and feel free to ask.
Thank you for those lovely questions.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Kabir. Just wanted to know what's the biggest lesson you've learned in life so far?
Oh boy, I've learned a lot of lessons along the way. When you've risen so high and fallen so hard, there's a lot of lessons you learn along the way. One is never mistake your success for who you are, because success can come and go, but you have to deal with yourself at all times. You are not your job, you are not your success, you are not your failure, you are you, and never lose sight of the strengths within that you. Secondly, be very careful about who you fall in love with, and for what reasons. Thirdly, don't give your trust to people easily. Let people earn your trust. Fourthly, be more careful with your money, because it's not a video game, it's real life. And if you have earned it with great hard work, treat it with respect and care. But lastly, never lose touch with your creative self and never lose touch with your spiritual self, because both are essential to your growth and evolution as a human being.
Thank you so much. That was very profound. Thanks.
Good evening, Mr. Bedi.
Kabir, I have a question in the chat. Can you compare your theater and your film life? I used to love seeing you in Bombay in the early 70s on theater.
Yes, I did Tughlaq, which is Girish Karnad's first play. And that play actually catapulted me into the film industry, because it became Bombay's biggest and longest running theater hit. See, the stage is something which is the actor's country. There's nothing that compares the satisfaction that an actor gets from the stage in the same way as a film. Because on the stage, you have an uninterrupted performance. Nobody's stopping you every 5 minutes saying, retake, go back, do this, look at the light. Once the rehearsals are over, it's you and the audience, and you feel the pulse beat of the audience. You know it when you hit them where it matters.
Do you have a fitness routine, Mr. Kabir, that you follow at the age you are in right now? Because you look extremely fit. Is there something that you do, like a morning ritual that keeps you healthy and fit? My name is Elias.
I don't particularly like exercise, but after a certain age, you have to do it. There was a time I used to work out a lot. Then I sort of slacked off a bit. I just do the basics to keep fit, and throw in a bit of meditation, a bit of walking, a bit of weight training, just very little, as little as I can do. But I do have a mixture of some spices that I eat, which include, and I have a great belief in the curative and regenerative power of turmeric and its essential ingredient, curcumin. And I do take that with dalchini and honey and things like that. But I do believe a lot in curcumin. So if you want to look for a spice that I believe is very life-giving, I think curcumin is it. And then I also like my fried eggs. I like my eggs. I think they're also very important stem cells, I call them.
Stigma exists in a really big way now. How do you normalize mental health now?
You can't normalize mental health, but what you can do is try and remove the stigma and secrecy that's involved with it. Just share the thought with people that mental illness, there's physical illness and there's mental illness. There are treatments of physical illness, there are treatments for mental illness. And in certain cases of mental illness, even if they aren't curable in certain cases, they're manageable, and much more so today than before. So I think the stigma should be removed. Also, I think what's important is to remember that the person who is suffering, who is afflicted by this mental problem, suffers, but the caregivers suffer as much, and the caregivers give even more because they're constantly adjusting for someone that they love. So the role of the caregiver should be seen with great compassion and great sympathy, because they're the ones that have to give the most and endure the most. And this was, like I said, what do I tell the press when my son is down with schizophrenia? How do I announce that? All those things I've discussed in my book, but the essential thing is don't be ashamed about it. Don't be ashamed about it. Don't try and hide it because it serves nobody. Deal with it in a way whereby it's dealt with the dignity it deserves. That's an ailment like any other. And that's the best way to deal with this.
Over to Samira for the vote of thanks.
Before the vote of thanks, if I could ask one last question, please.
Of course.
Is there any way we could get a signed copy of your book? I think many people here would love to have that.
Well, if you can send it to me, in a case, I'll sign it and send it back to you. I'm sure Shweta at Westland will work something out on that. But I'm very happy to sign. Or the next time I come to
Reena here once again. I think most of your books already have a pre-printed signature. If I could put my video on, I would show you right now. I'm unable to do so. But to answer you, Carolyn, most of Mr. Kabir Bedi's books already have the signature on it. And you'll have it once again.
I'd be happy to personalize it as well, given the occasion.
It'll give it a different touch altogether. Yeah. Thank you.
On that note, I would also like to add that Westland publishers are also sending us a few books, directly to Catholic Club as a symbol of their appreciation to us, and also of a beautiful relationship that we have with our author today, Mr. Kabir Bedi. So look forward to having these books at the Catholic Club Library so that all of you can access them while you order your copies in the meanwhile. Yeah.
Kabir, I just like to say, Mr. Bedi, I just wanted to congratulate you, and I've been waiting a long time to get a word in. I just wanted to say that I'm coming from the generation who actually watched Sandokan. So
okay.
This is just thanks, and I think you're the hallmark or the epitome of the old world charm. I don't mean old as in age, but the magic and the mythical and all the phantasm of the old age. I think you are an epitome of that, and you bring a wonderful charm into everything. And I mean, that Sandokan series just lives in our mind forever. And I've also put on the chat that I love the title of your book, the word must. and I put it in the group chat that it conveys a kind of urgency that there's something just spilling out of, of you, and you have to get it out. And that conveys passion. And I think that that passion is very, your vulnerability, your fearlessness in speaking out is very enduring. God bless, sir. God bless.
Thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear that you saw Sandokan, because like Doordarshan and the Beatles, when I finally gave Sandokan like All India Radio and the Beatles, when I finally gave Sandokan to Doordarshan for free, again, they showed it without any fanfare. So a lot of people didn't catch it. But it was a 6-episode series. By the end, it started getting traction, but they never showed it again.
The name Kabir Bedi was synonymous with Sandokan.
Thank you.
I
love the fact that you saw it, and I love the fact that you appreciate the candor with which I've written this book, because I've shared many things that people actually like to keep secret, that they don't want to talk about, whether it's about their love life or about their financial life or about their mental life, whatever it is. I just said, tell the story the way it is, that the chips fall where they may, because I've had a wonderful life, a remarkable life, and I'd like to share it. And I think there's enough people out there that would gain from reading my life in terms of what they can get out of it for their own lives. So thank you for your appreciation.
Also, I'd like to quickly say, very well done, Kabir. I was one of the, I suppose from the group, one of the few who saw you in Tughlaq. And that I'm from Bombay, not Mumbai, right. Bombay. And that opening scene, I shall never forget. How they robed you in.
Since you mentioned it, let me describe it to the members of the club.
Yes, please.
This is a scene that, in a sense, was, again, a moment that changed many things for me. So, I'm playing the Emperor Tughlaq. Yeah. He was regarded in history as a madman, but he was really ahead of his time. So when the curtains part on this wonderful historical play, what you see is me standing with my back to the audience, arms out like this.
Exactly.
And from the back, I look completely naked.
Yeah.
So the audience went into a collective gasp because they'd never seen something like that on stage before. A naked man standing on the stage. Actually, the family jewels in front were covered by a lagote, but that wasn't seen. The shock of that made this the talking point of the whole town. It was a great play, brilliantly directed by Alec Padamsee, crafted magnificently by Girish Karnad. It ran on its own right. But cynics said that it was the sight of my butt that made the play a success. That's not true. It was a dramatic image, though. And that image got so much publicity that it got me invited into Bollywood and all the other things that followed. So you saw that opening scene.
I did. That's why it's still etched in my brain. So you can imagine. Which year was that? 70s?
Thank you.
71, 72? Which year would that happen?
That was in 1970.
Correct. Have you mentioned that in your book? This opening scene?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, great.
The whole story behind the opening scene is all in my book. And
Elizabeth, not just the mention, even the picture, every
chapter
ends with illustrations, and that picture is also captured.
Oh, really? With this back to the audience. Oh, wonderful. Look forward to that.
Well, on that note, everyone out here, we express our humble gratitude. And as we do that, I think we must never forget that the highest appreciation is not just by uttering words, but to live by them. And with us, we have Kabir, who has been an outstanding person, not just a true human being, not just realistically facing the challenges in this world, not just, a wonder, a joy, a heartbreak, but he makes all of us know what it is to be human. Hearty congratulations to you, Kabir, on behalf of all the members here at Catholic Club and all those watching today. a strong message. And that message to us is, no matter what the trials and tribulations this life can bring, we can overcome.
We can. We can. I do hope you enjoy reading my book and you learned at least how I overcame.
Yes.
And maybe in there are some little learnings for you too.
And I think that is the beauty, because at Catholic Club, we also are here together, as one community. And I would like to, also spare out my sincere appreciation to the subcommittee, dynamic set of ladies who have been with us, very overpowering in terms of bringing the community together, creating a very good feel of sisterhood and reaching out, especially during this time of the pandemic and when things are getting better post-pandemic. Well, I would like to also honor and highlight Carol Lobo, Lunita Desa, Shanti Perez, Naomi Raskina, Vinita Tambuchetti, Rohini De Silva, Tessa Ramapuram, Rohini Majala, Reena Pereira for bringing the book to the club, MICs, the members also who have been part of it. We also have people from the club, Vani, Vinay, and Anthony, who have been with us, to our president, Ricky Patel, the managing committee, and the members of Catholic Club, and our very exciting audience who are with us today. So Kabir, on behalf of all of us, our sincere thanks and humble gratitude for all that you do and continue to do. May you continue to shine on, and we will always be with you in spirit and look forward to welcoming you to Catholic Club someday, sometime.
Thanks for organizing this wonderful session. I'm most grateful.
Wonderful. Before we go, may I request everyone to kindly switch on their videos?
So no, it's not allowing us to. I struggled for a long time.
Yeah, Reena, you're on. We can see your video.
Yeah, that's the host.
None of us can be. Yeah, the host is not allowing us.
Okay. May I request the IT team kindly ensure that everyone's video and audio is switched on, and we will now have a photo session.
No, he's gone.
What's happened?
Yeah, we can see you. We can see you.
Okay. So I think at the count of 3, 1, 2, and congratulations, Kabir.
Thank you.
For this beautiful session. And
Thank
to
you.
all of you out here, all of you, thank you for being part of it. Can we all put our heart together so that we send out our love and light to Kabir from all of us here at Bangalore, and so that he only shines more and more. So maybe if we can do this in our videos.
God bless.
Kabir.
God bless, yes.
God bless you all, sending love and light from here at Catholic Club, all across Bangalore to you.
Love and light to all of you too.
Kabir, is there any place we can see Sandokan? Is it on YouTube?
Yes.
There was to Sandokan on YouTube. Yes, there are.
Okay, I'll look for it because really looking forward.
It's
Thank
awesome.
you so much.
And it's being remade now with
make sure you see it in order. Make sure you see it in order. There's all kinds of versions floating around, but do see it.
Okay, I'll have to look for it. Maybe on
But read the
Netflix,
book
if you could get it out on Netflix somehow, that would be great.
That's one of the efforts. Looking at that too.
Fabulous.
Thank you, Kabir.
Thank you so much.
For the wonderful
Okay, all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Take care.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. God bless.
Thank you. Fabulous, Samira. Really amazing. Thank you so much. The whole team. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you,
To all
Reena,
of us who have been
for
part of
inviting. Thank you.
Oh yeah, Elizabeth. Yeah, you came from there. Thanks. I'm glad you asked that question too.
Excellent. Must say thank you. It's been a lovely evening.
Thank you.
Thank
All
you.
the best. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you. And all the best for more.
Thank you. Thank you.